Salve a tutti, sono Rossi Wolf 89. Oggi tratteremo mm, per quanto riguarda le serie TV, a buona la prima, nella raccolta, diciamo, delle 3 volte alla settimana di questo che spiega le serie TV preferite mie. E questa volta trattiamo di Penny Dreadful. Allora, Penny Dreadful, innanzitutto possiamo dire che le stagioni sono abbastanza poche, ridotte, cioè sono solo 3 di 27 episodi e, e sono lunghe circa un'ora. E questo, questa serie TV tratta del genere drammatico, molto oscuro, molto, fantastico, tratta dei temi sui temi di Dracula, mm, di Dorian Gray, il mito di Dorian Gray, del mito di Frankenstein. Tutte riportano, il licantropi, riportano a quei temi lì. E oltre a, la serie principale per Penny Dreadful, dove c'è tra l'altro una delle mie attrici preferite, che fa Doctor Who, si chiama Billie Piper. Non so se vi ricordate quella bionda. Ehm, Abbiamo uno spin-off che si chiama Penny Dreadful City of Angels. Vai. E sì, ho preparato un video che più o meno racchiude la prima stagione. ehm, una serie di immagini, una serie di foto, insomma, per non, siccome ha spoiler, purtroppo, forse qualcosina ci avrà. eh, Ho cercato di trovarvi un video che ne avesse il meno possibile. Come vedete dalla prima immagine del video. Bene, facciamolo partire.
So, if you've seen my Frankenstein versus Dracula video, you know that I added elements from the television series Penny Dreadful, and as I've mentioned, it is my absolute favourite show thus far. If you guys don't know, Penny Dreadful is a show that combines famous horror and gothic stories, including Frankenstein, the picture Dorian Gray, Dracula, and has recently added Jekyll and Hyde, along with many references to poems and other stories, including Penny Dreadfuls. However, there is an original story about a woman named Vanessa Ives and her battle between light and dark and her fight for her faith as the devil is seeking her to be the mother of all evil. Yes, that does sound a little weird, but the way the show tells it through writing, visuals, and performances makes you fully invested. Of course, one of the things that I love about this show is that it is such a love letter to these iconic stories in a literature way. So if you're fans of these novels, then this is a highly recommendation, even if it is set in Victorian London. But in my opinion, this was a wise direction to go as Victorian times relate to the themes of these stories. As many people know, the Victorian era was well known for the Industrial Revolution and how much it changes the way people view life. And these themes are seen in the book, and how nowadays technology is a big part of our culture as well as these themes, which is probably why these books are still famous as they are very relatable. So, for this video, I am going to discuss these themes, which I think make this series so brilliant, and hopefully, it can help you see if this is a show for you. One thing I always look for in a horror story is atmosphere. It doesn't have to be super gory or bloody, but if you have atmosphere, it helps the audience feel the environment and therefore investment. And this is what Penny Dreadful does. It is one of those shows that makes you want to immerse yourself even more by turning off the lights, turning up the volume to catch the audio even more. However, when there is blood and gore, it is shot so well that you just don't want to look away. This is especially from season 1, episode 7, entitled Possession, where Vanessa is
Benissimo.
being possessed by the devil. And the way they shot this entire episode made me feel claustrophobic, as the characters are
Scusate
trapped inside the
ragazzi,
house and you don't know when
non
is the
l'avevo
next
mai
time she's going to
fatto,
scream. And when you see her in that
solo
much
che
pain, you feel uncomfortable. But in a good way. You are totally immersed in the situation, and that's only one example. I could give you so many more, from the editing tricking, or the long shots revealing a new location, or sometimes not showing you a character without physically seeing them, but you feel the presence in the air. Overall, on a filmmaking level, it is smart and intriguing, and it just sucks you in and leaves you wanting more. And for a TV series, that is important. So, top marks for designers, editings, and cinematography. As the original story is based on Vanessa holding on to her faith and relationship with God, this show is very religious, but as the story of Frankenstein is involved, science is there, and it is clear that Victor does not believe. And so this is something that came around in Victorian times. Science was getting bigger and bigger, with inventions in chemistry and medical practices and theories about life and how we exist. Of course, this created the idea of science being seen as a danger to people's faith and religion, which is something that, in my opinion, Mary Shelley brought upon in Frankenstein. The obsession of Victor creating life and playing God, and the novel shows the consequences and how he is way over his head. So when the creature is alive, he automatically regrets what he's done. However, Victor is written a little differently in Penny Dreadful, as his obsession is not to destroy his creation, but rather trying to fix his problems, and yet it just keeps getting worse. But at the same time, there is the struggle with Vanessa, as no matter what happens, these demons are after her, and she's always
sta
holding on to
attrice è
her
molto
faith, and
brava.
at one point loses it or questions it. These themes relate to another theme that I'll bring up later, as it is their fight for the light. I do love that the show doesn't take one side, as these are two big themes, so you can see from the character's point of view, which makes you think, and this is what makes you want to come back, as well as exploring the ideas of beliefs and discovery becomes fascinating to the audience. Yes, if anyone has seen 1 or 2 episodes of Penny Dreadful, it is a very sexual show. But what's good about it is that there is a point to it all. The scenes they show help the story, characters, and just the themes of love or animalistic nature, which can be seen from all the characters, especially Dorian Gray. This is one of the things that I didn't like about the 90s version of Dracula with Gary Oldman, as there was way too much that added very little. The original Dracula novel, the theme of sexuality, in my opinion, is seen as an undertone, whereas the movie is holy shit in your face that it just becomes awkward. The reason I bring this up is because the novel's undertones come from the women characters, Mina and Lucy. In Victorian times, women were meant to be seen as only two things: a sweet and innocent virgin, or a devoted wife and mother, which both these girls are in Dracula, as Lucy is sweet and Mina, while a strong character for the time, is a devoted wife to Jonathan Harker, despite the fact that Dracula is after them. However, as Dracula is changing them into a creature of the night, it has the undertone of women being seen as a prostitute, which affects the image of the men around them. This can relate to the fact of sexuality was being explored more during Victorian times through medical practices, and so people were becoming more aware of how they act with their loved ones, mentally and physically, which relates to the story of Dorian Gray, who seeks to enjoy pleasure without dealing with the consequences. However, a character like Vanessa in this time seems very mysterious, and when you discover her backstory, it makes more sense why people in particular men see her. However, the perfect image of the innocent female becomes relevant in the Frankenstein story of the TV series. Unlike the book, Frankenstein fully creates a female companion for his monster. But the problem is that this is a woman that Victor created, and so she becomes his ideal woman, a vision of loveliness with fair blonde hair, which causes some problems, and even the bride questions the role of women in society. But what makes the show work is the chemistry from the performances. They are able to represent animalistic natures as creatures are a big part of the story, but also makes you invested in the romance that evolves. When you see these characters having a hint of happiness with another, makes you want more, and yet you know deep in your gut that these relationships are doomed because of the next theme I will bring up. Every single character in Penny Dreadful has their own demons to fight, and so they are strong together, which was one of the things I was worried about the third season, as they are pulled away to other places in the world. But sure enough, these last few episodes reminded me that what makes it work is that each character has their light and dark sides, and so they are all interesting, and you want to see them pull through. For example, Victor Frankenstein has been trying to fix his problems, but because of his emotions, it has led him to even more problems. But at the same time, seeing that glimpse of happiness as well as desperation to make things right makes you want to see him come through. Same can be said for Vanessa Ives and Ethan Chandler, as they keep fighting their own demons, and so when you see them almost living like a normal couple, it makes you feel happy but heartbreaking, as you know this can never be. But this is what all these novels are addressing, with characters trying to find the best way to improve life and therefore themselves. Whether it's Victor trying to conquer death and then destroy his mistake, or the men in Dracula saving their women before they become creatures of the night, or Dr. Jekyll trying to control the beast within ourselves, or Dorian Gray trying to avoid the consequences of pleasure and sin. Whether it is religion or science, love or sex, these are elements that help understand who we are, and yet even today we still try to find ways to identify ourselves and others. This is what makes us so interested in these horror novels and Victorian times, and therefore a show like Penny Dreadful, as it relates to our society. While it is certainly better than the 19th century, these themes still make us debate and discover. And so, having a show that not only celebrates these famous stories, but explore the themes from them is most welcome. If you only see it as a dark show with gore and sex that's just entertaining, fine. But I see it as a very intelligent television series, expressing these themes and more, which can make you think about them in ways that you might not have before, just like the original novels.
Ok, ragazzi, questo video è finito qui. Siamo a 15 minuti, perfetto. Ciao a tutti da grandissimo Rossi Wolf 89. Seguitemi su Twitch e YouTube, attivate la notifica. Ciao a tutti ragazzi.